mean, for instance, Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle, he was saying he's been talking about it for a while, but more notably in the last couple of days, since this Infrastructure Act, he's saying he's going to solve cancer with AI.
America has been able, our GDP is insane. The Mag 7 is bigger than like 90-something% of the other countries.
Almost
Just
every
the
country
Mag
in the
7.
world. And they're saying this is going to be the first mass market robot rollout in the world in terms of production facility.
Welcome to Bullish and Beyond. It's Beery the Bull. I'm your AI co-host. Join myself, Brian the MacMan, and JT Knows Things while we dive deep into the world of stocks, crypto, and how to live a bullish life. It's time to get bullish, and there's no better place to start than right here. Let's dive in.
We are back. Another episode of Bullish and Beyond. And we're excited because there's a lot of bullish stuff happening, since Trump's inauguration. Tons of stocks in crypto making waves. Most things are up. JT's crypto den is green, folks.
Green, baby.
What is going on in the world of stocks and crypto?
It's a crazy, crazy, crazy week, everybody. Bitcoin's price, for those who do not know, don't watch it, don't fall asleep to the chart like me, we're up 17% in the total
Wow, in a
7-day
week?
period. In the 7-day period. So last week we were on the climb up, but this week we peaked out at 107K. We were at 89,000
Yeah.
not just 7 days ago. So Trump and everything going on with him, which we're going to cover today, is driving our markets, at least crypto, through the roof because he is the most pro crypto president we could have ever hoped for. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Speaking of that,
it's
though, I saw a ton of volatility around Bitcoin, during the inauguration day. People were saying, we're hoping for a crypto reserve. It was going up a lot right ahead of it, but then he didn't actually mention anything related to that. Kind of nosedove from there a little bit, and then, back up since. Did you expect to hear something on day one or an executive order, or what did you expect to hear?
I'll be honest, and I'm sure a lot of the other crypto folk are in the same boat. I watched the inauguration hoping that the word crypto was said. I wouldn't have even cared if, just if it's front of mind on that day, that's super bullish.
But it was
Unfortunately, he
not
was not.
said.
Yeah, which is probably where the volatility came from. The robots and the people that are trying to front run one way or the other a word that was said. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. I personally think he in his first 100 days that is going to be something he attacks. I believe the way he operates is he attacks the big rocks first. So you have all these executive orders going after his biggest promises, and I think
Yeah, all
he's
the
just going to
tariffs and
work.
immigration and whatnot.
I think he's just working his way down the list, and he made a lot of promises. He's a man of his word, so it's going to take him a while to get all the way down to crypto. But I do believe I would even venture to say in his first 2 weeks he's going to do something. Um,
Speaking of being a man of his word, I'm wondering if he's actually going to back down from some of the things he's saying about the tariffs and stuff like that, particularly related to China. And,
yeah,
my opinion is there a lot of posturing to get things done that he wants related to things like having TikTok become, being owned by a US entity? Maybe there's all this negotiation to do stuff like that. He was talking about, doing a joint venture and having TikTok, half owned by that US venture and just, not paying for it. So collecting, hundreds of billions of dollars of value out of thin air. That seems like a great negotiation to throw out a massive tariff and then scale it back or maybe not even implement it right away.
yeah, I that's a great point. I absolutely believe he is going to enter into a lot of economic war. War might be dramatic, but he is very adamant about how we being America, have been in trading deficits for far too long. I think
Yeah,
he has only 4 years left, so he's just leaving it all on the
he's going
table.
after it.
And I think he's going to do things that entrepreneurs do, but politicians do not do. And creative problem solving and deal making are he is an expert. He's been doing it 60 years.
Art of the deal. He wrote the book.
He's been on TV doing it since the 90s. Like, this guy is the best,
Yes.
and that's absolutely a creative solution. Like, why couldn't that be
That's
a
how we
thing?
all know him, right? Because he was on deal doing deal making on The Apprentice. That's like his, claim to fame before people knew who he was.
You're fired. Like,
Yeah.
get out of here. Yeah, 100%. Like, that's his
Well,
thing.
he's trying to fire half the people in government, right?
Yeah. Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. It is still weird. I don't listen to mainstream media, but walking on my treadmill in the morning before I lift, listening to Fox News at 5:30 a.m., saying the word Doge, it's crazy for me as the crypto guy to hear Doge coming out of their
Yeah.
mouth.
The
Like,
first thing you think of is Dogecoin. I mean, for people who don't
of
know,
course.
Dogecoin, massive meme coin. Trump, Elon Musk, helped explode it when people thought maybe he was going to use it for transacting on Twitter, now X.
Yep,
And, that was the first coin I actually bought, believe it or not, in my Robinhood account
I believe it.
a couple of years ago. And I kind of forgot about it. I didn't even know about it. And it's up, I don't know, hundreds of percent since I bought it, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to hear that and it be a real thing. I think Elon Musk is just a comedian inside of some massive genius's body. Like he has a very goofy personality, which is strange for someone at that IQ.
And he's supposed to
And
run this Doge organization all by himself. I mean, he's the CEO and owner of, three Fortune 100 companies. You can't possibly have time to focus on this stuff. So I'm wondering who's actually going to do the groundwork on that. The other billionaire is bowed out. I think maybe he's going to run for governor of Ohio or something, perhaps.
wow. Elon Musk is
No,
running for governor.
the other billionaire that was
Oh,
part of the Doge.
I got you. Vivek
Yeah.
Ramaswamy. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Vivek I mean, he's got Ohio.
I don't
People
know
love
much about
Vivek
him.
here. I I happen to know a few people that swim in that circle with Vivek because he's kind of local to Ohio. He spent a lot of time in Southwest Ohio during this, recent campaign and for Trump and all that stuff. And he's had a lot of local fundraisers here. He is loved and adored here. He's essentially a young, successful billionaire through high finance and technology, and he's a conservative, and I think he's way closer to our idea of conservatism. He's not like your. I mean, he's the generation. He's a millennial, so he's going to have a lot of different ideas than a boomer's conservative.
We
But
need more millennials in government to make changes that align with the next up and coming generation.
right, I mean, how if you need an office aide to send a tweet, you probably shouldn't vote on legislation because you're going to
No.
die in the next 10 years and it doesn't matter to you at all. Like, ideally, I agree. We should have younger people in office. I think going back to the original part of this, China tariff, what's Trump going to do, promises. The tariff that he's implementing right now is 1/6 of what he promised. He promised a 60% excise tax on these people on China, and right now the executive order is 10% flat tariff, which is super super light to what he had talked about. And I think as it pertains to the markets, that's going to actually dramatically affect some things. I mean,
The biggest effect I'm seeing
basically,
is with Apple. Apple's down, 6% year to date. It's the only Magnificent Seven stock that's down.
how dependent, you would know this way more than me, how dependent is Apple on Chinese supply chain?
100% dependent. I mean, that's
A
where most of
hundred
their
percent?
products are made. Well, 100% might be the wrong word, but if they lost China, they would be in a world of hurt. most of the manufacturing comes out of China at the Foxconn facilities out there. They are diversifying to India and stuff like that, but just in only in small ways. I mean, they have some plants they're doing in the U.S. They're building certain Mac Pros in the U.S. and stuff like that. But all the iPhones in general are all made out in China, and that's
Yeah.
where all the components are sourced. Really can't do it without China. And Tim Cook's gone on record saying, actually, last time that Trump was president, he met with Tim Cook, and they were talking about how do they onshore some of this manufacturing in the U.S. And Tim Cook said it's not possible because we do not have the number of skilled engineers physically available in the entire country to put together one factory that would be close to what they're doing at Foxconn. You need like 100,000 smart engineers.
It's crazy.
However,
Crazy.
Foxconn actually just signed a robotic contract to get a huge number of robots to do assembly and inspection on the iPhone line. And they're saying
Oh
this is going to be
wow.
the first mass market robot rollout in the world in terms of a production facility.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So maybe
So
that could help the US in the future, but you still need some smart engineers to, watch the line and work on it. These robots are not at the level that leave them fully autonomous.
100%. 100%. And that right there, you're looking at two different vectors affecting the potential stock price of Apple. You have the incredible investment in that technology amortized is going to bring down the cost of production, right? If you're
Yeah,
financing those robots across 50 years and you're not paying wages anymore, that's going to get your cost of production per unit far lower. And AI is that deflationary pressure, where on the other side of
I
that
agree.
coin, you have this Chinese tariff and that flat 10% just to start, just, the salad, the intro, um, directly is going to affect the costs of Apple, driving profits down. Even I'm long on Apple, but there could
I'm
be
not
some
sure it's
money
going to drive
there.
profits down. So I would disagree. I think they're going to
You
pass
think
on
it's
most of
going
it to the
to,
consumer. If
okay,
they, if you look at the component costs, so if you look at
yeah,
a $999 iPhone Pro, the actual component cost might be somewhere in the $300 to $400 range. So if you increase that by 10%, let's say you're at 400, you're at 450, and they could just tack that on to the consumer. So now it's 1,049 for the phone instead of the 999. And I
yeah,
think they'll find ways to reduce costs if they don't change the price. They're gonna somehow make the packaging cheaper, or they've already pulled out the charger and the cord, so they can't keep pulling components out anymore. But
that's
they'll
right.
find a way. I'm kind of convinced of that, or at least the next generation phone, they'll figure out a way to make the materials slightly cheaper, and they're getting a massive economies of scale as they continue to plug R&D into these devices and find new ways to make the components cheaper.
And that right there, folks, is why I called it an inflationary pressure. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I was hoping me saying that's going to hurt profits would make you defend the price going up because that's what happens. Well,
Well, it's a little bit of
that's
both.
just
The
yeah,
inflationary is,
yeah,
it's going to go up, to the consumer, but also deflationary from having the robots in the future. So that it could be a
exactly.
counterbalance. We don't really know how it's going to shake out, and it's going to take a couple of years to tell. These robots aren't coming online, today. They're supposed to
Right.
start in 2025, but I'm not sure what level they're going to reach, immediately.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that is something I believe the Mag 7 are going to benefit from the most upfront because of those economies of scale, because of the kind of liquidity they have, the kind of talent they have. They're the ones that are going to implement this technology first.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see the cost of compute, storage, and a lot of the white collar work that goes on, that's going to be affected by all this technology first, in my opinion. Because the suite of tools they're going to be able to roll out is going to infect enterprise, which is going to affect that job market completely.
Yep.
And then eventually we're going to see blue collar robots enter the home, but I feel like that is years after the white collar wave just cycles out almost. I mean, it's kind of
Almost
crazy to think
probably take
about.
a year or two maybe to reach the consumer household after they've hit the business side. I'm
Yeah.
curious why there isn't a pre-order yet on, from a Tesla Optimus bot. He's pretty good at doing pre-orders on some of these cars that are, 4 years out. I mean, took 4 years to get the Cybertruck into consumers' hands. The Roadster, I think, is going on 7 or 8 years now since they announced it. And
Wow.
if you bought the founder edition or whatever, you had to pay upfront the $250,000. Had you invested that in Tesla, it'd be worth over 1.5 million. So he really did people a disfavor by not putting this car out into the market and collecting their cash. So I would suspect, at some point that he's going to do an announcement where you can pre-order them. I mean, he showcased them multiple times now in his events. He had them at the last Cybercab event. He had a bunch of robots dancing and serving drinks and some stuff like that. They were controlled partially by humans, which he wasn't hiding the fact that that was real, that they're doing the thing, but he had human controllers. So I would think in the next year or so, maybe there's a pre-order saying, hey, they're out in the commercial side, but you can pre-order them for your house, and just seeing what demand is there. I mean, I know I would certainly get one, maybe two.
Would you? You'd have a little Optimus robot doing all your dishes, cleaning the house, and I mean, I would too. I would
Yeah,
have
I
kind
mean,
of
I got three
you
kids, man.
know,
I need help with laundry and dishes every day.
I think it's an amazing future we're walking into. That's an that's going to happen in our lifetime. I think inside of 10 years, for the price of a car or cheaper, you're going to be able to get that done for
Yeah,
like literally 50,
that's what he
like
says.
for
Maybe
as
30, 40 grand.
for as long as you live, you're going to have this companion that is going to make your life that much more convenient. And we offer, I mean, why can't you? I mean, most
That's one
commercial
reason I'm bullish
robots,
on life. We'll have, robots to help us do tasks that, either we can't do as we age, or we don't want to hurt ourselves in certain, jobs out there that are, very dangerous, and other
yeah,
time-consuming tasks. We're gonna have more time to focus on creativity when we free up our personal time with robotic help.
I hope that's how it plays out. I'm bullish on it. That's exactly how I want it to be.
I take the
I
positive view on a lot of this stuff. I mean, there's certainly some negative downsides that could play
I
out, and
mean,
yeah,
we've
it's possible, but why think about
yeah,
that future when we can just try to make the real future we want happen? And I'm a huge proponent of having that mindset that if we focus on what we want and we work towards it, that's the reality that actually will happen.
100%. I totally agree. And honestly, we couldn't have a better in my opinion, I'm not a Trumper, but in terms of a leader that is trying to manifest a positive future, that inaugural speech honestly kind of shook me a little bit. Talk about he's on the side of the dreamer. I should never give up. Like he did a good little piece on resiliency. And some of these executive orders coming out of the White House make me feel like we are coming back to the old America. Like I had a lot of good feelings on Monday. It was a really
I love it.
interesting day to see.
That's why I got my Party Like a Patriot shirt on.
I love that shirt. I love it. I'm gonna have to buy me one of those. That's a
I
good
normally
one.
only wear it on July 4th, but I thought today was the day, talking about, Trump's inauguration and what's going on in our government and everything else. Perfect time.
100%. Perfect timing. I think the China thing was not surprising, but definitely can affect the markets in the next week or two for people that are in here looking for entries and stuff. I think there's going to be kind of like a shock. People are going to be assuming that all of these Chinese supply chains are dramatically going to affect the prices to consumers, and that might drive down demand for a time, which would drive down sales, which would drive down reports, which would drive down, prices of stocks
That would
theoretically.
help. That would help
But
inflation in theory. Demand goes down a
it
little
would
bit.
help it. Yeah, you're 100% right. It
Yeah.
absolutely would. Because the amount of money we're printing, its number go up. Technology. I mean, the debt to income ratio. For those, I watch macro a lot. For those that
That has
come,
not been in focus
tune
at
in,
all, really.
not a word, and it went from 106 to 119% in the past 4 years, and Trump in the first day is already spending half a trillion, not a billion, a trillion with a T, half a trillion on his first day of spending on research and development for, federal AGI essentially.
All right, let's
And
get into that because I love this
okay.
$500 billion AI infrastructure bill.
Oh
We
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Technology is the best thing I think that is going on in the US. Like we are a tech powerhouse. We have the smartest people in the world basically running the best tech companies. I mean the biggest companies in the world are in the US and we have the policies to support that and if Trump continues to push and grow those companies, it's going to benefit everyone in America and the world. And some of those companies that he called out in this AI infrastructure bill are crushing it. Nvidia, OpenAI,
Oh,
Oracle. I mean, they're all taking off. So cool to see what investments are going to come their way, and then the tertiary benefits, secondary benefits, within that. I think a lot of companies, that are playing in the infrastructure space, whether it's data centers or AI defense, like a Palantir, for example, they're all going to do really well. And the stocks are up a ton from just having that
yeah.
inclusion in this announcement. But I think there's way more to come from this. And, not all the money is secured yet or anything like that. We don't know really what's going to happen. But just the fact that we're investing in tech and AI and want to be the world leader, I think is crucial.
It's also crucial for those stock prices. It's crucial America gets there, 1,000%. I'm actually happy to see him attack this on day one. It's also crucial for those because, dude, being a part of that, however it plays out, I don't know if they're doing a JV with the government or if it's going to be a government project and they're just the advisors or if they're doing the work and then they're going to have a government team. We got to see how this splits up, but half a
Yeah,
trillion
Stargate. We don't know.
for
We don't know how it's going to play out yet.
we have no idea how it's going to play out, but half a trillion being thrown around on day one is definitely promising for those companies. I mean, that's a big enough pie for all of them to salivate over, right? That's a
Yeah,
crazy amount of money. And it would only drive more growth and development in our borders, which is what we need. We
that's what I
need
think. I
our
mean, invest in the
GDP.
big companies, invest in the startups. Like, why doesn't the government just put more money behind the growth engine of the tech and other industries that we need to prop up the U.S. and the world? It makes too much sense. I mean, that's a good investment. I mean, AI and
You
infrastructure
have
is key to our future.
it 1,000% is, but you got to remember there's a whole other side to all of this, and it is like the money part of it. If our GDP is not in a deficit, it's our fiat system could fail. Like the fact that there is a little bit of debt between our government and the central banks, it allows the Fed to stimulate or stop or just react to the economy. If our GDP was greater than our debt and we weren't as reliant on the central banks, the Fed themselves, their rate cuts and hikes and all the different things they do with the actual financing of our homes, our motorcycles,
Uh huh.
whatever, all of that debt, it would be very difficult for the Fed to have any real weight in that regard. So they're incentivized to keep that debt. And the government is too. They know if there's a little bit of a gap,
Oh, I
they
never
can
thought about
always
that way.
use. Yeah, so like and this is helpful for the folks at home. When I talk about the Fed and the government and all this other stuff, all you got to think about is the president runs America. America has a balance sheet. Ultimately, our GDP is that is the net sum of our balance sheet. Everything in our borders comes down to our GDP number. When our GDP is higher, that allows us to borrow more money. That's why we borrow money from the central banks, give it to the banks. They distribute it to people that take loans, take risks to build the GDP, entrepreneurs, real estate, whatever it is, developers, right? They then increase the GDP with this money that's been, I call it washed by the banks. And then that allows us to borrow more money in the future. So there's this balancing game. And when you have fiscal policy like Stargate, spending more, that's increasing this gap. And the only investment that makes sense for increasing your debt would be to increase your GDP because that's going to keep the game going. If our debt,
I would guess that $500 billion, as it's being spent, would increase the GDP through more companies accessing AI and the infrastructure and stuff like that. I mean, not day one, obviously. This is a long term plan.
right? Well, just
So that's
imagine if
so that's
you're
how it's going
in,
to play out. So it'll grow the GDP, and then we'll borrow more, and the cycle continues.
yeah, exactly. That's Trump's the businessman. He understands this. So just imagine 5 years from now, America is the leader in all of these areas, right? And you are a entrepreneur with something special in one of these countries, and you have serious weight.
Yeah,
You're going to want to come to America to do anything in this field because we are established as the number one place to do that. And America has been able, our GDP is insane. The Mag 7 is bigger than like 90 something percent of the other countries.
almost
Just
every
the
country
Mag
in the
7.
world.
Yeah, yeah. It's like our GDP is a monster. It's a monster. And it's
I
been a
think I think
monster.
Apple is like a top 20 country in the world just of itself.
That's what I'm saying. And that's one
It's
company in
insane.
America. Yeah, that's just another way to think about it. That's one LLC out of an ocean of 30 million in America. That's how crazy we are. And it's bigger
Yeah.
than countries. And there's many companies that are bigger than countries. So many in America. And for when we were number one from the 40s, we had the most gold. So our dollar became the most trusted currency. Ever since that moment after World War II, moving on, we have been able to, be number one and recruit the best and get people to be here. It's the place where you have the most opportunity. That all drives GDP up. And Trump is spending all of these executive orders trying to increase GDP. Even even this external revenue service concept he's talking about, and
Yeah.
where he is trying to fix
Sounds like a
all of
good
these
idea.
trade deficits. I think it's a wonderful idea. I had no idea, zero, that Canada was at a $400 billion trade
Yeah.
deficit. I had no idea that we've been subsidizing that government 400 billion. And for those that don't know what trading deficits are, it's basically like this. Let's say Brian and I, we wanted to do a trade. He had 100 apples because he loves apples, $1 a pop, and I wanted those apples. And since he's poor and he's my boy, I'm just going to buy $100 of apples for like 100 and what would that 400 billion. I don't even know what they're. Okay, let's say I decide to buy the apples for 400 bucks because I feel bad for Brian because he needs my help. I'm intentionally buying the thing for more
You're
for
propping it
chance.
up.
Yeah, that way the government feels like they owe me something so I can remain in control. Most of our foreign policy has been economic, and we either are in a surplus or a deficit. And those are the levers we pull. Hey, like you owe us this much money, you're going to do this. Things like that. Well, Trump's saying, I don't care at all anymore. I'm not entering a bad trade ever again. America will never be in a bad trade. He's opening the book and seeing, oh my God, all we have is bad trades. And he's telling them, we're done. And we will just buy your country if you can't afford to,
I mean, I'm curious
exist
on the
on your own.
secondary effects of that. I was just doing a little bit of research on what happens with all these tariffs that are going to be placed on Canada, and they're saying it might send them into like a recession because it's going to hurt their GDP so much. So if
Yeah.
that happens, does that hurt our trade even worse? Like, is there a compounding effect that then they can spend less money on U.S. stuff? And how does that affect us, going forward potentially?
So, a good way to do that analysis would be to understand what percent of imports and exports are between Canada and America. Um, and then I would try to figure out who the largest suppliers are of those commodities. It's likely just because of the geography. I would guess it's lumber. I don't know a lot about that trade relationship,
I
but I would
think
guess.
lumber and dairy might have been the top one and two.
Okay, so then I would go to the companies that deal with those, and depending on what the percent is. I mean, like another way to think about it. Let's say we buy $100 billion of lumber a year, and there's two major lumber companies in Canada, and now that 100 billion is going to be, I don't even know what it would be, but
Half it.
they need to, yeah, okay, cut it in half. They would be a great short. Like those companies would be a great short.
Yeah.
Um, because how do they deal with that? It's going to be a rubber band. It's going to snap. They're going to struggle, and then they could recover. They could pull out, but they're going to be affected the most because that's going to be enforced at the border, and they're the ones driving it, or shipping it. I don't know how they get lumber to America, but you get it.
Aren't we going to run out
Um,
of some materials though? If we hurt our trade relationships, potentially we're going to have to source these materials elsewhere. I mean, are we looking to China then to buy lumber or somewhere else? Maybe the price changes, maybe the quality changes, the supply chain timing
here,
changes. So I think there's a lot that's going to happen with that.
regardless of what mainstream media tells you, we have been sitting on resources for a very long time. Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize for this idea. And we want to hoard our resources and we want to buy everyone else's resources. We want to be
We
a
could just use
leader
ores.
in
We could drill more oil, but it's too protected or whatever, and we're not doing it.
drill, baby, drill, because he is tired of sitting on
Yeah,
that much oil. We have more oil than the Middle East, just in Alaska, in Texas. Yet
we're number one.
we restrict how much we pull out of the ground just because of this concept of the economic levers for
Yeah,
leverage, right? Like if you basically if 70% of your GDP is propped up on my consumerism, the second I ban your products, I do an embargo, your country is dead. You will
it's going
die.
to
You
tank.
cannot exist. Yeah. And we'll be fine. We'll just get
We're
the
we're
same
always
thing from
propping up
some.
everyone.
Exactly. Because then that's our version of leverage on a foreign policy scale. And that has led the Democrats in their foreign policy for a very long time. And Obama was, renowned for his implementation of it. Trump is a Republican, and conservatives have a very different policy. They are big stick diplomacy. Foreign policy is more about military than economics.
Yeah,
So they are going to enforce their standards of trade with military. That's basically how they do it. And they don't really, it's kind of like a bully on the playground versus the really, crafty teacher or
so
something.
you think we should put some more money in some of these AI defense stocks like Palantir?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the kind of policy we're expecting the next 4 years, I would expect that War Machine to do well in terms of a sleeve or a theme in a portfolio. I
Yeah,
would also I would also expect basically any people that deal with America First resources, I would expect them to do very well. Like I think he's going to deregulate. I think he is going to take the ceiling off. He's going to make our trades win or self-generate the resource. I think he is done messing around. I think he's going to get market price for everything, maybe a premium for reparations because he's that guy. And if you can't afford it, we're just going to make it, and he doesn't care. And if you
yeah.
got a problem with it, we'll bomb you. And that's like a 1950s Republican. Like that's what I feel like after he took a bullet through the ear, that's his energy right now. And
He's going
I
after
think
it.
it's yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of drilling. I think we're going to see a lot of lumbering. We're going to start seeing our resources being used. He's going to start tapping those reserves to create, in my opinion, more revenue for the government without affecting the citizens.
Yeah, I like
And
it. Hey, speaking
I,
of oil, I've been doing
yeah,
one of the books I'm reading about some new technology is talking a lot about how we can uh be more clean as we convert oil into electricity. So in general, I read that the US is the one of the cleanest, at least, as we're converting to electricity, and China is the least clean, just for comparison. And we're taking
Yeah.
most of these, coal mines like offline, or trying to, because of how dirty they are. But a couple new companies have created a method to actually recapture the fumes coming off the coal and converting them into a product that creates graphene, which is then
Oh,
used to create,
wow.
like,
Yeah.
nano strong
Semiconductors and
layers. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And it's, graphene, I think it's like $250,000 a ton. I mean, this is very,
Yeah.
very expensive stuff. So people are incentivized not just to do green stuff, but then to turn it into this, because there's actually a serious profitability piece for companies that can make that conversion. So I think that we don't need to get rid of fossil fuel. We just need to do it cleaner. And this technology already, they've proven, is 97% clean with this process. And they're just starting to convert these coal producers over to this. It's very, very expensive to do. It takes a long time. So it's not going to happen overnight. But the fact that we can do this today, that I'm very green on using oil and coal for the future if we can just make it clean. And there's no
Yeah.
reason not to use it then. If it is in this massive supply and it's made green, we'll recapture money for the US, we'll power the
That's right.
economy. And this growing economy needs more power. I love being green. I drive an EV, but you can't just power the world with wind and solar. It doesn't work. It is
Right.
such a small percent. And in every energy revolution, the previous energy has always stayed on at a lower rate. It's going to happen again. So we need fossil fuels to power the world. If we could have nuclear reactors everywhere powering AI infrastructure, that's great. Oklo, one of the companies we talked about here before, big nuclear
Right.
company, they're up 40% or something like that since Trump's talk. I mean, it's going crazy. But but they're not
Right.
the go-to solution. I mean, like, their stuff's going to come online in 5 years, let's say. So what are we going to do now? We got to use the coal and the oil and just make it cleaner.
Absolutely. I
So
think
that's some tech I need to invest more in, where you can actually, most of it's all privatized, so I don't know where to invest publicly in that yet. But that's something that I'm going to look more into for our listeners.
yeah, energy is one of the most undervalued asset classes, in my opinion. And they're not asset classes, just out of the commodities,
Yeah.
energy is the most undervalued because the amount of energy just to run one Microsoft data center, for those that don't remember our first or second episode, it cost, I'm sorry, to run one data center, it was more than the entire state of New York's grid. So
Wow.
what they had to do for their massive supercomputer, they're going to run on their NAE. So like they're going to do three per region of their networks. So their
Okay.
NAE region, North American East, is right there. They have to restart the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor just to power this
Yep.
data center. And it's just one company's one data
One
center.
data center.
So, like, guys, the energy is so undervalued. We can't even support the grid as is. Like, Texas had to make their own grid, right? And
Yep.
now we're adding this technology to
And the
our
grid's already
world.
getting topped out, right? I mean, they've had blackouts, brownouts, whatever. So the fact that we're even seeing that
Absolutely.
already, and AI is at its infancy, frankly, we're going to need 10 or 100 times the amount of power, a couple decades from now. So yeah, we're going to need nuclear to come back online in a big way. But
Big
some of
way.
these other, looking at some of these coal companies, like their price to book ratio is so low, because they're not making much money. They are going offline. It's crazy expensive to keep up with. But if we convert them to these much greener facilities that are then recollecting
Sure.
products that can be sold and reused in a big way, they all of a sudden could increase their profitability multifold.
And graphene is a very desired product in technology. That's why I knew what it was. I mean, we've been using graphene and
Well, if we have more of it, we can use more in semiconductors, but it's too expensive now, so we have to find a way to get it cheaper to then be able to use it.
Yeah, exactly. People have been working on synthetic graphene for a while, or synthetic components they can make in a lab because of the difficulty it is to create, and then it drives the price up of all
Yeah.
of the components that go into devices, which drives the price device up, and or the prices of devices up,
Well, speaking of
and
synthetic
that's
graphene, one of my friends invested in a company that makes synthetic diamonds. And why it's
oh
great not to
yeah,
have a blood diamond on your ring, on your hand. The main futuristic thing they're thinking of is how they're going to use diamond in semiconductors. So if they can
yeah.
get it to that level, I mean, the possibilities are insane. I don't know enough about how it works differently than current materials, but I know it can do things at speeds that we're not used to.
Yeah, it's twofold in conductivity and light refraction. So it's going to make processing faster. The issue is getting it thin enough.
Yep.
It's a, we're talking in nanometers, right? Like this is like it's crazy. Like if you ever felt you couldn't even see something that's a nanometer thick,
You
right? With
literally
your
can't see it. It's not visible to the eye.
yeah, right. So I mean, you need robots that
They
have
they they have
robots that have
20
robots.
trillion things on a chip that's the size of a quarter. So yeah, I mean it's insane to think that we're going to use materials like that, but we are. It's coming.
100% we are,
I'm
and
I'm bullish on it.
eventually, yeah, eventually, dude, it's going to be the size of like a skin cell, and it's going to be in your skin or in a device so small that you can take on and off, like in those Black Mirror movies,
Yeah.
like or TV shows. These chips are going to get so powerful at such a small size very soon, and they're going to be quantum capable. I could, I'm just theory crafting here, the whole beyond part, but I could easily see a neural interface in 20 years where you just put a thing on your temple and it lets you think to a computer. Like you won't even be saying anything. There's going to be a quantum interface that can work at the thought level. And
They have some stuff
yeah,
already that's at that level at a small
I
scale. I will
know,
say I was
I
doing some
know.
research on that. There's a
Yeah,
$89 BCI brain computer interface device that's out now. If you go to their website, there's a pretty funny video on it. Let me mention to the readers what it's called here real quick because it's pretty cool. Let's find it. Just writing about it the other day. It's
yeah,
called
yeah, yeah,
OMI, OMI dot me. And the one they're selling to consumers right now is more of a listening device that then captures everything you're doing during the day. But the one software update that's coming to it in the near future is going to allow it to interface with your brain just on your temple. And kind of the first use cases they were saying of like being able to think about turning your lights off, and they've mapped what that does in your brain, and that can talk to, in the future Siri or whatever, tell it to
yep,
turn your lights off in your house. And they're saying that's actually live now, and that's $100 device, and it's
yeah,
the size of a quarter that goes right here in your temple.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. About 7 years ago, we encoded quanta. So everyone knows about the speed of light, but now everyone's starting to understand, not maybe understand, but they've heard of quantum computing. And there's the speed of quanta, which is the
What
speed of
is the
thought.
speed of quanta,
So
JT? JT knows about this.
I do. It's the speed of thought, y'all. It's how fast that, like, whatever you're thinking right now, the speed of which it happens in your brain, that is the speed of quanta. So literally faster than light. The the you
Can
thinking to
you
turn the
compare it to
light
the speed
switch
of
on.
light? Is it 10x or 100x? Do we know?
Oh, I don't know the exact because there's an exact answer. There's gonna be some nerd out there
Okay.
that's not gonna like my answer, but it like we'll call it light of speed or the speed of light squared. It's just faster. Like
Okay.
in the time for you to think about flipping a switch, that's the speed of quanta. For you to even flip a switch to turn the light on, like whatever, So it's just like you're not going to be processing things, or I guess computers are going to process at the speed our brain does. That bandwidth, the latency, the time it takes for a message to go from one server to the other through the satellite, and That's all just gone. It's going to be directly from thought to computer. The second we can program that interface to
I,
have a
I
timeless,
I can't wait, dude. I mean, I'm bullish on how we can change
it's going
humanity
to
with things like that. I mean, I think
it's going to be
so
crazy.
quickly. I could not even imagine my thoughts being turned into reality. If I can think about it, and
Instant.
then 10 years from now, let's say, now not only is the brain computer interface understanding what I'm thinking that quickly, but then it's my robot at home is reacting to it. Like if
Yes.
you had at Nvidia, for example, if you had 10,000, trained engineered robots that could react to whatever Jensen was thinking at the moment, like how fast would they
Yeah.
be creating changes to AI and supercomputers? I mean, it'd be faster than light speed.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It is insane. And quantum computing is evidence and proof that it's real. Like I'm not some crazy dude. Like the whole idea of quantum computing is the moment a photon in this reality changes state. So if I mess with it at all, it could be anywhere in the galaxy. I'm talking multiple universes away. The same identical photon in that version of reality would change instantly. Distance is not a factor in the quantum field.
Yeah.
Space is not a variable in the quantum field. It's so hard to think
It's hard.
about, but
It's hard to
I'm down.
explain and
Yeah,
conceptualize.
yeah, it's not a thing, and if space isn't a thing, guess what? Time isn't either. I mean, time is only experienced when traveling distances,
It's true.
right? Like, so space time in the quantum field, not a thing. If
Not
we
relevant.
can have 1,000 qubits, that's the other crazy thing that Willow proved. 1,000 qubits, the output that Willow did, it infers
And
that we
Will only had
harnessed.
100. 1,000 is going to
Oh
be
yeah, yeah,
life
100. My
changing
bad. You're right.
because
Yeah,
each
yeah,
one is
yeah.
exponential.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not like you're adding
Yes.
a one transistor. It's 10x.
Yeah. Qubits are real. We like qubits. It's crazy. Um, but yeah, the qubits output we have right now in our computers at this moment suggests that we're harnessing the power of photons that are greater than the volume in our current universe. That's the crazy part. So like theoretically,
Explain that again, JT. What do you mean? What do you
okay.
mean we're
So
harnessing more photons than the universe combined?
well, that's how quantum computing works. It's just literally photons. Those are like that's light. Okay, and
The smallest
basically the
part of an atom.
scientists, yeah, exactly. The scientists got together. They put this massive thing together, and then they just hit a button, and they were like, "Look, here's a math problem. It could take 100 septillion years to do, which is our current computing power that we're aware of, or it could do it in a month, a year, 10 years, a day, we don't know. And it did it in 5 minutes. Okay. The fact that it did it that fast, and the reason why we thought it might take a long time is because we theoretically, through math and through equations,
We have no
figured out
idea.
roughly, yeah, well, we figured out roughly what the output should be based on the amount of photons that theoretically could exist in our universe. You following me? It's like, well,
Okay.
theoretically, it should take about a month or two, or maybe a year. And, somewhere in there, if our math is even remotely accurate, right?
Yep.
And it did 5 minutes. And then they've been racking their brain. They're like, the only explanation is we harnessed more photons than what is in our universe to get this 5 minute computation. So they, in a roundabout way,
That is
have
beyond
proven.
where my mind can go.
Okay, it's hard. I know. I'm going to
I mean,
try this on
I get
another
it, but I
episode.
mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's I read a little bit about that. I mean, so you're basically at a
yeah.
multiverse theory at that
Yes.
point that there's multiple universes that help create that one equation answer.
Yeah, the fact that we solved it so fast means that we basically used more fuel. Think of it out as fuel. the only way that we were able to do that means that we had to get fuel from somewhere else, and the somewhere else is a different universe
Interesting.
because, like, it's like no way could we have done
Or we
that
don't know the extent of our own universe.
or that. There we go. Okay,
Because
there's a
if
little
our universe
alternative
is
theory.
expanding faster than we can see, then no one actually knows.
Yeah,
And you can't, I
that's
mean, you
true.
can never see into ultimate deep space. I mean, we have these, satellites that go out and take pictures that can see, billions of light years away, but that's not far enough.
It's not. It's not even close to far enough. Um, yeah, that's a great point. But it's super interesting
Our
because
universe is so
you and
big. I don't think
I,
it's hard to even just think about. Like I think at our closest point with Mars, it's like a 34 million miles, and then at the furthest cycle of our relation to Mars, it's like 220 million miles. So the fact that we're that many miles away from like our closest planet, I mean,
right,
it is
right.
just a blip.
Yeah, and to think like that distance is an inch in the universal scale, right? Like it's not even an inch. It
Yes,
might be a nano.
it's not.
It's actually a
Yes.
nanometer. That's what it is. Like that distance, right? Miles are so small. It's like it's not even worth talking about. Um, yeah, it's crazy, man.
So if we're
And
already doing this,
I
I mean,
think
taking
it's
it back a step, if we're already doing that with
yeah,
Willow, I mean, I'm bullish on the
right.
future. We're going to solve problems that we can't even think about solving, or problems that haven't even happened yet. Like, I mean, for instance, Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle, he was saying he's been talking about it for a while, but more notably in the last couple of days, since this Infrastructure Act, he's saying he's going to solve cancer with AI. And I if it's not him, I believe that we will solve problems like that at an individualized level because of how fast technology is moving. If quantum computing can solve
Absolutely.
problems that are supposed to take, more years than the universe has been alive, well, then clearly in the future, when we can use it correctly, we're going to solve someone's internal problems in the matter of seconds.
Seconds. Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. It's why we invest in the spaces that we're investing in. I mean, it's why people tune into a podcast like this, like going long in tech for these reasons. It's
That's
hard
why
to
the
know
U.S. needs to
who's
keep
going to make it.
investing.
Back to Stargate, baby. That's
That's
what
what
we're
I
doing.
mean. I mean, if you cured
Yeah,
cancer, $500 billion would look like the smallest investment in the world. Like, like, I mean, trillions of dollars of economic savings and life saved, and the future of
yep.
that, it'd be incredible. So if we can just create technologies that are gonna save the world, save our people, it's basically limitless in terms of the value, in my opinion.
Oh, it's 100% limitless, and we finally are going to have someone like RFK at the helm, um, not protecting big pharma, not protecting the FDA.
Are we
We're
banning
going to
these
have
dyes yet? These red dyes and whatnot? I hear.
Oh, RFK is going to do that day one. I mean, I think we're going to get European food standards day one of RFK. I pray to God we do. I mean, the same
It's kind of
products
scary that
are
we haven't had
illegal.
that for so long, though. I mean, the people. I mean, obviously, I try to eat super clean and whole foods, but it's not possible all the time. And
Right?
there's so much crap on all these labels. I wish there was just three or four ingredients, which I knew the names of them all, but not the case when you shop on a store shelf.
I
So, I
know.
mean, the average
It's
person, I mean, I'm very lucky and fortunate that I can afford to go buy organic and, healthy food and, basically eat whole foods for most of my meals. I eat basically
right.
vegetables and foods all through breakfast and lunch until I get to my dinner. But I know that most people aren't in that boat, so they're eating things on the store shelf that are cheaper and full of crap, unfortunately, and it just continues to drive a cycle of unhealthiness, for our nation. It's going to be really hard to pull out of.
It's going to be really hard to pull out of. All the damage is done. Like all of the colorectal cancer is getting younger and younger. Breast cancer is getting younger and younger. Ovarian
Yeah.
cancer is getting younger and younger. Why? Why is our and this is probably a whole nother episode, but why why is our median age dropping? We are
It
the
shouldn't be.
most advanced. We have the biggest GDP. We are America, and our median age went from 81 to 76. Why?
That's a
where
scary
everyone
stat. It should
else,
always be going
yeah,
up.
everyone else is. That's the scarier part. 81 to 83. Even in China, the communist place, people are living longer.
It's
They
honestly
don't even
most.
eat.
It's mostly the food. I mean, as much as we want to work out to be healthy, I think it's about 90% the food we put in our body. I was
Yes.
doing some more reading on the most tested man, Brian Johnson, our kind of longevity
Yeah.
expert and guru, and just seeing some of the things he puts in his body and the amount of vitamins and healthy things that he has to consume every day. I mean, he's 100% vegan, and he's only eating foods that have one ingredient.
It's crazy.
you know so if you go to that level, I mean, I'm not willing to only do that. I still like to go out and have dinner with my family and friends, but at some point, are you gonna knowingly put bad things in your body as more information is coming to us that we know we can do things healthier? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are willing to still live fast and die young to some extent, that they just want to live their life and they're not so worried about pushing on longevity. But how technology is changing, I think it's going to be super cool to live for a very long time. So I'm trying to continually be healthier. I think I'm,
100%.
aging slower than, some people my age. I try to be healthy and work out. One of my goals for this year is swimming every single day of the year. And
That's a
I will
good
tell
goal.
you, I am meeting that. It's the 23rd of January that we're recording. I've swam more than 23 times. So I'm allowed
Let's
to take a
go.
break for a day because I've actually doubled up already twice.
There it is. That's great.
And
I
thankfully, I
love it.
live in
Florida
Florida,
living,
so that
baby.
helps out because you're in
Yeah, I'm
Ohio.
saying
I think it's
can't
about
swim right now,
0 or
brother.
5 degrees. I don't. Your pool, if you have one, it's frozen over in Ohio.
Yeah, it was negative 13 yesterday. First time I seen the the river frozen in my life.
No
Literally, the
way.
Little Miami River has never been completely frozen my entire life, and it you could walk across it yesterday. It was wild.
I saw people playing ice
Um,
hockey down in New Orleans where I went to school. They were on Canal Street playing ice hockey.
yeah, it's got this polar vortex thing. It's crazy. It's
So,
real too. I mean, it's real.
we could talk
I
about
got
what's going
all
on in the
the
world. Is the world really heating up or not? I mean, there's.
yeah. What is this? What is this? Is this global warming? I don't feel like it. It feels like the opposite. Maybe I would prefer global warming to what I've been going through right now. I'll tell you what, like, yeah, dude, that sounds good. Let's melt some ice caps for God's sakes. Let's get some heat. Um, but
Well, I live close to Miami, so don't melt it too much because there's some flooding that might go on there. That could be a real thing.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got to get that water
Any
level.
any
Got to
other
keep it
of
low.
Trump's executive orders that you want to talk about before we wrap this up? I know we've gotten pretty deep on some of these things and how it's going to affect the
Yeah,
world through his politics.
I think before we close it up, just everyone pay attention to what he does in the next few weeks. These markets are sloshing around. There's all this capital that are overpricing things. There's crazy speculation. Just stick to your thesis, stick to your principles, keep doing the work, and we'll check in on you guys next week. We'll be talking about all the
That
madness that ensues, I'm sure.
JT, that's great advice. And I just want to hammer that home that some of the speculation, the fact that Oklo, the nuclear stock, is up so much, they don't have revenue, just to clarify. So it is speculation. Yes, it could turn into reality, but there's a lot of movement ahead of anything actually happening. So yes, stick to your guns, invest in the real companies. I haven't got back into the quantum space, yet. So you guys stick with the companies that are actually making some money here. We want our investors that are listening to this to make money and invest smart.
That's
Do
right.
your research.
Do your research always.
But we're bullish on the future. Big changes happening. Very exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Keep tuning in for more bullishness and lots of other bullish ideas to come. Cheers,
See you guys.
everyone.
Bulls. That's a wrap on today's episode of Bullish and Beyond. Remember, the market never sleeps and neither should your ambitions. Whether it's stocks, crypto, or just leveling up in life, stay focused, stay bullish, and keep charging forward. Keep your energy high and your mindset bullish. This is Beery the Bull, your AI co-host, Brian the Mac Man, and JT Knows Things signing off. All content published by Bullish and Beyond, LLC reflects personal opinions only and is provided for informational purposes. Please conduct your own research and discuss with your accountant and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The information presented should not be taken as financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Nothing you hear, see, or read in our content should be considered as any form of financial, investment, or legal advice, or a solicitation to buy or sell any assets, or to make any financial decisions.